What is up, F100 Talk? Craig from Craig Classic here. Today we've got a bit of a change-up. Luke Finley, ThunderHead289. If you don't know that name, you're not on YouTube. And if you don't know that name, you're not on Facebook. But the reality is you've seen him, we'll just say Junkyard Digs. If you guys know who that is, then you have seen Luke Finley. But the chances are, if you're a Ford man, you probably heard of him. So what's up, Luke Finley, man? How you doing? Thank you for taking this time. I know it's probably going to be a quick podcast today, but I appreciate you sort of carving out a spot for me, man.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me. I'm always kind of pinched for time from this side or the other thing, just wearing a bunch of different hats in life, but irons in the fire. But you've been trying for a while, you know, and I think we had a good opportunity today to get something done. So yeah,
cool. I appreciate that, man. Well, I'll dive right into it, dude. So, how many followers or subscribers rather do you have on YouTube?
Maybe I should look more often. It's somewhere below 200,000, somewhere above 180,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. Probably like 185, somewhere like that. I don't know.
186,000, dude. Oh my gosh, it's big. We've had other YouTubers on here, and I think at least on the Ford side, you're definitely one of the higher subscribers anyway when it comes to subscriber count. And you just, I'm looking at here, and you got yourself a Galaxy? I haven't watched that video yet.
Oh yeah, I got, you know, I'm good at picking stuff up and getting it running. Not so good at the selling part, you know?
Yeah.
I find like a lot of decent vehicles, I guess, that something went wrong, someone parked them, and then I get them going. But I don't flip them, I guess. A lot of times I end up just driving them right into the ground or, you know, until they're beyond repair or whatever. So
you like to hold on to everything, is what you're saying? Because that's my problem.
You know, I'm like one of those people that's kind of whimsical and sentimental, and I get like some weird sentimental attachment to things, and then they just kind of stick around. But I use them too. I mean, I drive to work 80 miles a day, and you know, for me, I just like driving the old cars. That's a nice opportunity to do so. So I just flip around. You know, I'll drive the F100 a little bit. I have this Maverick with a 302. It's a four-door Maverick. I don't know why someone built this car the way they did at one point.
Is that what you're in right now?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in the Maverick across from a cornfield in some vacant lot. I'm waiting for the police to pull up, and if I get pulled over or something, they leave me alone. The Maverick's kind of a hooligan wagon, so it attracts a lot of not so positive attention. But you know, they run my record, and I got a clean record, and they're like, whatever, he's just some weird dude sitting in a lot. But yeah.
When you were basically doing your YouTube stuff and starting videos, like how did you start with your YouTube? Like how did this whole start happen?
You know, that was like a long time ago. It was like 8 years ago now, maybe 9 years ago. I just started just fooling around with YouTube. That was back in like the primordial soup era of YouTube, all right, where there was like YouTube wasn't really TV or anything. And so I just upload videos once in a while. And then, you know, I was actually on forums. Okay, so this is how I got into doing like how-to videos. I was on forums, and I asked a lot of questions. I was trying to figure this stuff out too, like when I was 17 or 18, right? That's the whole reason I made my YouTube channel, but I can get to that in a moment. But, you know, I used to ask a lot of questions, and then as I learned more in forums, you know, they were a lot more active back then, I would start answering people's questions, and then it oftentimes became a lot easier just to record. There'd be so many similar questions, right? The same question would get asked fairly often. And so I just thought, well, heck, I'm just going to shoot a video of this thing and embed the video in my response. And then, you know, I don't have to type the thing out every time. And just, you know, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, what's a video worth? Like 1,000,000 words? I don't know. It's just that much easier. So I started doing that. You know, I had a YouTube channel already that I just kind of fooled around with. Nothing, like no seriousness whatsoever with it. I was just uploading stuff just for the fun of it, I guess. And anyway, and then that transitioned into the how-to stuff. Eric the Car Guy was really big back then, and I always kind of looked up to him. You know, I thought it was really cool that he was just an average Joe guy teaching people how to do things back in his early years. And I know he still does that now. But, you know, that might have been like the framework for what ThunderHead289 or whatever grew into today. Side note, I do not like my name, but I'm stuck with it, and it's just what it is now.
Why?
You know, so the name structure I don't know if anyone remembers the forum days, but that's like a very forum-esque name. That was not my forum name. I guess I made a different one when I did the YouTube thing and communicated back and forth with the forums, but I'm not sure how I got the name. Now, the 289 part came from the first engine I ever rebuilt with my dad when I was like 16, was a Ford 289 engine. That was actually the whole backstory of the F100. That was kind of my start to all of this automotive stuff. The F100 was my first car, and yada yada, had a 289 in it, which there's a lot of, I can just go through that really quick. It's really weird. And so, when I was a kid, I wasn't really into anything mechanical. All right. I didn't have anything to really call my own. I was kind of a heavy set kid that sat around and played video games. And my dad, my dad's like very blue collar. Okay. And he just got super fed up with that. And one day he went full table flip mode and said, heck, didn't actually flip a table, but he was just done. He was done with the whole thing. And he came upstairs to my room, took my Xbox and took that thing to Goodwill. And then I came home, it was gone, yada, yada. And then he'd been sifting around on Craigslist and found this old F100 for like $500 out in Greenfield, Iowa, or Green, Iowa. I can't remember, one or the other. It was like very picturesque, sitting in a cornfield. Everyone tries to go for with rivals today, but this was like the real thing back then, I guess. And so anyway, that was supposed to be something for me, so that I don't know. He just wanted me to have something in life, some skills, capabilities that would serve me well later in life. And I hated him for it at the time, but it did work out for the best. But anyway, we got that thing, right, pulled it home. It originally had a 289 that someone had put in. The guy told us that it had 90 weight. It hadn't run for like 10 years or something. And he said, I remember I had to put 90 weight in it. It had just so low of oil pressure. I was like, now I'm like, holy crap, I can't even believe something didn't snap an oil pump drive shaft on 90 weight. But it sure did. But anyway, we got it home. It had that 289 with a 3-speed manual converted to the floor. Originally, it was, it looks very similar now to what it did back then. I haven't really changed the exterior appearance largely. But the weirdest thing about the 289, it had six 289 rods, 2 302 rods. And I should remember because I'm, a Ford guy, but I'm pretty sure the 302 rods are actually, the connecting rod length is actually shorter, and it had a 289 crank. So it had like no compression on two cylinders. It had a 76cc cylinder head on one side and a 54cc cylinder head on the other side, and some Offenhauser intake. It's like some farmer just took a bunch of junk parts he had left laying around and put it together. And anyway, long story short, my dad, knew a little about cars, and we got it running and soon learned that, that thing was just straight debacleville. So anyway, then we built an engine and yada, yada. And that was the first engine I ever had. So that's where the 289 name came from. And a lot of my forum searching and activity came from, about that engine, me trying to figure out how to make it run right and everything. And, so I guess that's the backstory of the name as far as I know. I don't know.
Cool, yeah. Oh, that's cool. So this truck that we see in your YouTube videos, the F100, that's the one that your dad bought you when you were a kid?
Yeah, that one I've had for like 10 or 12 years or so. That's
cool. The OG. That's cool. So, yeah, I definitely want to get back some more specs about that, especially because you did, a transmission swap and all that jazz. But so basically you're saying, I got a question. You talked about the forums. Were you on the Ford Truck Enthusiasts and Fortification forums?
I was probably, if I remember right. It's been so long. But I mean, a 302 engine, a Windsor engine is a Windsor engine is a Windsor engine. And so, well, that was a tongue twister there. But anyway, I think back then I went to the most active forum at that time, and it was all Ford Mustangs or something like that. It was something to do with Mustangs. And so it's too bad I can't find the guy. One guy that taught me a lot, then he got banned because I think he got so tired of answering questions that he started to get rude and they banned him or something. But it was Cindy's SN95. That guy answered so many of my questions and gave me like the early framework what I did today. If I could ever find that man, got banned, so I couldn't message him, back in 2014 or something. I tried to find him and I saw that he was banned, but I would give him the biggest handshake in the world. But anyway, that's the forum.
What's funny is like, it'd be cool if he was listening to this.
That would be really cool.
That'd be kind of epic. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you'd be like, you're that stupid kid that asked all those stupid questions.
You're the reason I got pissed.
Yeah, maybe I was. Gee whiz, I don't know. I latch on to people that had knowledge, and I'd give them the business, man, trying to figure out this, that, or the other thing, because I just want to enjoy my car. That was at the end of the day. It's just frustrating, you have something that you kind of like, and you don't know why it doesn't work right, and you don't want to hurt it. I mean, we had no money, and I didn't want to destroy the engine that we had just spent, $2,500 or whatever rebuilding. That was like a chunk of money in an old, what folks would otherwise consider just a piece of garbage truck. So it was a time back in the day.
You're in the Rust Belt too, so I'm surprised it's really as solid as it is.
Yeah, I think there's a unique thing about Iowa, right? Just out in the country, I don't think they would salt back in the 70s or 80s or something. Now, if you're in town, everything's gone. It's just rust hole city. But out in the boondocks and whatever, they I just don't think they salted that much. And these old two-wheel trucks, I don't think folks really drove them in the winter either. So they were pretty good survivors. The backstory on my own F100, though, some of my keys have Selma, Alabama stamped on them. And then it's got an old, I forgot about this actually until I'm just talking about it. It has an old military tag on the front. I can't remember exactly what it says, but someone down south, probably in maybe Huntsville, Alabama. The truck was down there for a while or something. I've never been able to really find the backstory, and I want to go and look it up.
Military, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm sure someone who just was in the military owned it at one point, and I'd love to go and look it up. But I almost just like to leave it in wonderment. I almost just don't want to be disappointed by finding out the story. So if the story comes to me, great, but I'm not going to seek it out.
Yeah. Every truck has a story. Not all of them are freaking fantastic, but honestly, I mean, a lot of us that are listening to this podcast, we did things like that with certain family members, or we're restoring a truck or something like that because of a grandpa or grandma or a dad or somebody like that. So it's kind of cool that your dad basically threw your freaking, game console out and forced you to work on an F100. I think that's epic.
He was, my great grandpa or something was some, I don't know how no one in our family ever has had too much money, but he did a lot of mechanical in his day, a lot of Fords and different engine things, that, and the other thing, and had a shop, in Illinois somewhere. And then my dad was around that in his youth. So my dad didn't have a whole lot of knowledge, but he thought, the F100 was a good opportunity for me to learn some, he would consider useful for life skills. Just my dad's just a very mechanical, physical world type person. So, he has put the high value on those skills, which I mean, they have come in handy a number of times, especially living in an old crappy trailer. So,
is that truck basically probably why you're Ford? Like, is that why you're kind of a Ford guy?
I actually have rebuilt a number of Chevrolet small blocks in my day as well. I think what it came down to, I started with Fords, and I've always liked the Ford racing history from the 60s. I think they had some good engine families and stuff, and they just, I don't know, there's can't think of the word, but like an aura around Ford from that era that just is very vintage-esque to me. So, I kind of stuck on that, but largely the reason I've stuck with Fords is, it's once you learn something, it's easy to stick with it. But Chevrolet is not a whole heck of a lot different from that, from a platform stance, but it's just easier. Back in the day, there'd be a 302 in this car, a 302 in that car. Parts were very interchangeable. So for me, and doing all this old car stuff, it was just easy to stick with one families, and I don't have to amass tons and tons of parts for different engine families. And Fords have always treated me pretty well. Ford was always good about offering manual transmissions, which for me, I always go for manual transmissions in old cars. It just, I'm one of those people that I'm going to drop the cliche driving experience line, but it really is, it just has a better feel to it for me, personal opinion. But so Ford, they just had a lot of good manuals. This Maverick has the top loader, then they had the T5, and the 3 speeds and whatever. Ford just used a lot more manual transmissions, I guess, and that kind of kept me in the in the Ford ballpark.
It's funny you're sitting in your Maverick in a parking lot. Like, I'm just ready for a cop to kind of come right behind you there, like, you know, tap on the glass and be like, hey, you know.
Dude, it happens. This thing, it's like flat black and rust, and
It's your hoopty, man.
yeah, it's a, you know, because primer's porous or whatever, moisture gets to it, so rust has come through the primer. Now it looks like it's a straight rat wagon, and it looks very questionable to the police.
That's funny.
But then they pull me over, they run my record, they're like, yeah.
You're just a hick. They just go, okay, never mind.
Yeah, no, you're just some weird dude driving a clapped out beater, whatever, you're fine, I guess. We got bigger problems.
That's funny. So basically you started your YouTube channel answering questions on forums, and then what made you want to come over and start making videos on YouTube?
You know, really for the, what made me want to make videos, I guess, like I said, it was just easier if someone had a similar questions. A lot of the questions were always the same. A carbureted engine is a carbureted engine is a carbureted engine. And so it was easier to just record, I guess, a video explaining one piece of something or other, like adjusting mix screws, and then I could just embed that video in my response, and it was just that much easier. And then, so YouTube was like not my primary focus. I just used it as an auxiliary tool. And then over time, I just had more fun with it, and it grew. YouTube, like I said, that was a primordial soup of YouTube, where it was, you know, it was like cat videos and stupid animations. It wasn't anything too formal. But as it got more formal, then I got more formal with it, for, you know, I guess.
That's cool. All right. So basically, I got to ask, man, Edelbrock or Holly?
You know, I like things about the both of them. I stick with Hollies because, again, I have mostly Holly parts, but I've tuned a lot of Edelbrocks. And, you know, this is probably rude to say, but I actually like Edelbrock people that I've encountered a lot more. They're a lot more down to earth. And maybe I have a bad example. You know, on Power Tour, someone broke down. I was helping them out, and I went and asked Edelbrock parts. They didn't know who I was. I was just Joe Blow, nobody to them. And they bent over backwards to get me the stuff that I needed to help this guy out. They were right there, and they were extremely helpful. So, you know, maybe I don't have a negative opinion of Holly because I've never had a similar situation, but, you know, yeah, I mean, everyone has their own type of thing, right? You know, like Ford people are a certain type, Chevy people are a certain type, Mopar people seem to be all their own thing. And I definitely fit into the Ford classification, you know, and I won't expand on that because there's definitely some cliches across all fields that are fairly unsavory. Ford people definitely have their own cliches as well, but
Yep. So what video went quote unquote viral for you?
You know, I would say the first one that, you know, for me, big, like I'm around all these other big name YouTubers now. Somehow I got grafted in with them that do these revivals all the time. But probably the first thing that took off for me is I revived one of my coworkers' F100s that was out in the woods. And how that came about, you know, like revivals was not a genre that the average people did, right, at this point.
Yeah.
It was roadkill and then no one else. Someone might have like a cold start video was maybe the closest thing. And so I pulled this F100 out of the woods with my coworker, and that was probably, I guess I made it because roadkill isn't too friendly to me, but you know, they sold out. They had all that Dodge and Mopar, and they were putting that stupid Hellcat engine in the Charger. So I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the Hellcat engine. There's nothing wrong with the Charger. But me, I'm a purist, but not a purist. Like, I'll put a manual transmission, anything. I don't care. I don't care about numbers matching, none of that. But, you know, I try and keep, it just seems wrong, you know, the fuel injected engine, whatever. And they were starting to do all that where they were doing roadkill episodes with just sellout-ish type scenarios. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to take this back to the way it was, what we all like to see. And it's like, if I can't see it myself, I'm just going to go out and do it. And I knew that Mike had this F100, and he'd been talking about getting it going for a while. And I said, you know what, heck, I'll just help you. We'll go out and do the thing. And so it sat for, you know, you remembered it from his youth. So I don't know, it probably sat there for like 20 some odd years. And it was a inline 6, 3-speed on the column or whatever it was. And we got that thing going just like all old cars are usually capable of doing, and drove that thing right out of its grave, its hole in the ground that sat in for God knows how long. And I don't know that, and everyone seemed to kind of like that thing. And then other people started doing that. And then, you know, Kevin and I, Junkyard Digs, like, he was originally an Instagrammer, okay. And so he had, I don't know if I've already told the story how he found me on this podcast here, but he had seen one of my videos that I did and heard the radio station, and he's kind of a social butterfly. So he sent me a message, tracked me down, sent me a message. And anyway, we were both in the same area, central Iowa. And one time, he likes to take, at the time, he would take pictures of trucks on farms and stuff for, his Instagram page, Junkyard Digs. And so my wife, she was a triathlete and a marathon runner. So she runs by all these old farms. We're out in BFE nowhere. Pretty much all of Iowa is largely BFE. But she ran by this farm and saw this old truck and told me about it. And so, Kevin, one day back when we were young and didn't have a whole lot to do all the time, I was like, dude, you got to come out and see this thing. My wife told me about it and sent me a picture. It looks really cool. So we went out there and he got some pictures of it, and I reached in and I turned the fan. I was like, this son of a gun. It basically, if you can get an engine to turn over, if you can make the crank turn a full revolution, that sucker's going to run if it's a carbureted engine,
Right.
more often than not. And so anyway, I cranked it over, and then I basically said, dude, this is how you could start your own YouTube channel. You could record the revival of this thing. And at that time I had just done my F100 revival, and I was like, just do it the same way. We'll fix it all right here. Don't trailer at home. That loses some of the essence. Like, we're going to do the thing all right here and drive her out of its hole. And that was the start of Junkyard Digs. Those things, Kevin and I are on screen the whole time throughout the whole deal. And those videos got like 4 or 5 million views a piece. And then the whole revival genre just exploded, right? Then everyone started doing it. Then, I don't remember on the timeline where Derek showed up, but in 2019, he was, a pretty normal dude. We all did Power Tour together and all that. So, but then, now everyone's doing that revival thing. But that's kind of where I came from. I was very early on in the revivals, and it was an F-Series Ford, and, the rest is history, I guess.
That's cool. On the F100 side too, one of my favorite videos, I think there's more than one actually, that you did was the T5 swap, which I think now is like super common. There's 100 videos of them out there. But when you did it, it was like there were videos out there, but they weren't as, for lack of a better word, detailed in the way that you did it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember when Craig, he put I remember what his originally was, but that's kind of how I met the Craig 909. And I've been out to California for my previous job and saw the thing in person. It's pretty cool old truck that he's got there.
Oh, it is, yeah.
He had seen my video and he talked back and forth, and we went through kind of the Z-bar linkage and getting that 3550 Tremec installed in his truck. I don't know if that's the same trans he has now, but he's got some pretty good videos on that whole process as well himself at this point.
He does more like blog stuff. So like you learn a lot in his videos, but that's not the intent of the video. You know what I mean? Like what you do is, for some of it anyway, you go into pretty good detail with carburetors and stuff like that. Like when you watch his videos, like he shows what he did, but it's not like a super detailed thing, So it's kind of a fun watch when you don't really want to, when you're not needing a tech video. And I think that's kind of what makes his videos shine, is that they're just kind of a Junkyard Digs in a way for his truck, if you will, when it's just like you're just watching it, and you're just watching the process and the journey or whatever that he's doing with this truck. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. YouTube kind of developed where folks create a personality around themselves, and then folks, viewers could almost in a way vicariously live through them. So I have some videos out there that I just recorded doing something pretty simple. It was more like the life and times of Uncle Luke over here, but people seem to stuff where I'm like, I don't really want to be, I just want the tech to shine. I don't really want to be a personality, a name. There's plenty of things in my life. There's no reason that anyone should ever try and look up to me, especially. But, it's cool what Craig's done with creating a personality around himself. And, even when I was waiting to get on this call with you, I was actually just trying to update myself and see where he was with things. I know he's got some engine work he's doing on his F100 where it has some blow by. So I asked him some questions about, his baffling and his breathers. He's got some Moroso valve covers, which I had an issue with something like that in the past where, it didn't have like a baffle in it, and then it would just chooch oil like crazy, even though there really wasn't a problem. So I'm not totally on the up and up on what Craig does. I'm kind of a hermit. I don't watch a lot of other YouTubers, but I like the genuineness about what he does. He's like a real car guy.
Oh yeah.
He actually likes it, and YouTube is secondary. And a lot of YouTubers aren't really like that anymore. It's like they're a YouTuber first and a car guy second. They're just a car guy because it's convenient for YouTube. So I really like folks that, you know, their thing is like they actually have a passion for the cars, right? That's like what they're into. And then YouTube is a secondary thing. And those people are the fun people to watch because it's very genuine. I mean, you can't fake and genuine. And those guys definitely have it.
To support what you're saying too, is the last time, whatever that was, a couple months ago that I hung out with him. You know, I brought a camera, I did it all, and like I don't think he lifted his camera up, like, you know, even a handful of times to do some video for YouTube, and I was just like found myself not really using my camera that much, you know, because it was just like I just wanted to hang out with the Craig 909 at some drag race down the road from him and so on and so forth. So it was like you're absolutely right, like. I almost felt like I shouldn't use my camera, like instinctively just being around him, you know, and then lo and behold, you know, he hasn't made a video of anything that, you know, that we really hung out except the engagement thing that was super cool. If you haven't watched that video, you should go watch it. But you're absolutely right. And while we were talking with him, and I hope I have this guy right. I think he was talking about Junkyard Digs. I think he was talking about Kevin. He hung out with him. I think that's who he's talking about. I hope so. Maybe I got the guy wrong, but we were talking about another YouTuber, and he said he was like that. He's like, that guy just wanted to chill. Like, he just wanted to hang out, you know. And I thought that was like super cool. It's like you can get so lost in this content and all that jazz, you know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, so yeah, you're absolutely right about how people kind of get lost on the video content and the fact that Craig is so genuine. Honestly, I think that's why people like your videos. It's you cut to the chase. There's no, you know, in between. Nobody's psyching you out for something to watch later in the video or anything like that. Like you're like, hey, here's what I have in front of me. I'm going to tell you about it, and that's pretty cool. That's why I like your videos anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know. I hope he didn't say anything too terrible. He might have been talking about me because I met up with him, went to a car show with him once when I was down there in San Diego for my previous job. I was there for a week, and we hung out for an evening and went for a rip in his F100. And I did a burnout in his truck and whatever.
You know, it might have been you, because one thing he did say is he goes, that guy is seriously tall. Like, you're like, how tall are you?
6'7".
It might have been you, dude. I can't remember. I'll be honest with you. Like, I've hung out with Craig twice, but I'm still sort of like I don't know. I hope he doesn't know this or anything, but I'm still kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm hanging out with the Craig 909. Oh my gosh, I'm hanging out with the Craig 909. You know, like I try to play it cool. Like, you know, like when I met Aaron or Casey, I was like trying to play it cool, but the reality is I just kept going through my head where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I get to hang out with, you know, these people or whatever. It was pretty epic, but yeah, he might have been talking about you. I'm not sure.
You know, what's cool about all the YouTubers, really, you meet them and, you know, I don't know, everyone's just largely normal people. There's some people that put on like a little bit for YouTube, you know, it's like a persona, you know, and maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe it's not known, but I mean, Derek is definitely a persona. The Derek in real life versus the Vice Grip Garage you see on camera is a completely different person.
Why do you think that?
You know, like not totally, but he has like Derek-isms that he says. And I mean, he talks like a normal guy in normal life. Like when we're on Power Tour 2019, you know, I actually didn't even know who Derek was on Power Tour 2019. 2019, I had never known of him before. Kevin's always been good about grabbing people and introducing everyone. So that's something really cool about that Kevin's always done. But, you know, so people would come up to Derek and they'd say like sparkulator and weird things. It's like, what is going on? Then Derek would get all in his whatever skiddly-doo mode, start saying Derek-isms. I'm like, what is happening? Someone had to explain it to me. That like who Derek is, you know, himself. And I don't want to say he's a completely different person. I mean, it's largely the same person, but it's not like he walks around yelling sparkulator all the time, you know. And so he has, and I'm sure everyone knows that. He's just got a few fun little sayings that he'll say from time to time. But it caught me off guard. I was like, what's happening? Like, I must have missed something on this guy.
That's cool. Now, I will just say, I think people already recognize it watching your videos. You're kind of the same dude, man. Like, you talk the same, you act the same, sound the same. You know, your sentence structure of how you explain things is exactly how you do it on video. So,
yeah. Well, not to say that the other folks aren't, but I'm probably even more awkward on videos than I am in real life because I'm not talking to anybody. So that just gets real weird. Sometimes, like lately, I've had to do videos like late at night because I just don't have time unless I'm going to do them between 10 and 2 a.m. And so it gets I get a little loopy with myself trying to explain what I'm doing or whatever. Or I'm eating a burrito in the middle of me talking or whatever. I don't know.
It's real. It makes it real, dude. You know, I'll be honest. Just talking to a camera in general is weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, I have to have people around me to talk to when the camera's on for me to act anything close to like normal. You know, when I'm talking to some of the 4400 World members talking about their trucks or whatever, I have to like have somebody around me, like, just to be a normal human with. Like, just staring at a camera in my garage is the weirdest thing ever, you know. But maybe I start eating like you do in your videos while I'm doing that.
Distract yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Just get a burrito. That's good. Well, that's cool. So where do you think your channel, your Ford, all that stuff, your truck, where do you think it's going next? You got any future plans?
You know, I'm just kind of living my life, and YouTube just does what YouTube does. And as long as I have something profound to teach somebody, I don't really like making clickbait. And so then I'll make a video on it. If I don't have anything to say that I feel is like, okay, I'm just making this to keep my name alive, I just won't do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's just whatever kind of comes up. I got a 393 stroker that I have half built in the garage. It might end up in the F100, might end up in my Galaxy. You know, so I just kind of follow the life and times and of what I'm doing and a little teaching with that. And, you know, I run a Facebook group, ThunderHead289 Carbon Engine Tech and Tune Forum. So the longest name on the face of the planet. But I, you know, oftentimes that'll spur along a video. Someone's asking a question. I'm like, I don't know how to explain this other than a video where it's like, oh, you know, that's a really good thing that I've never really covered, that, you know, maybe I can shed some light on the tech that surrounds that scenario. And then I'll make a video with that, you know. But other than that, you know, I don't really like pre-plan it. It's just a run and gun mentality.
Cool. Yeah, well, it works, whatever you're doing. So keep it up. I want to get to the more specs of your truck and everything, but I am curious to know about that Galaxy. So you guys probably all watched the video by now. This comes out, but what was why the Galaxy, and what are you going to do with it and stuff?
So the 64, I got a couple Galaxies, ironically.
Oh, yeah.
But,
the latest one, then, I guess.
The most recent teal one, I don't know. I picked it up north, didn't run, and had a lot of brake issues and whatever. Just sat for a long time in someone's garage, and just got it going. Has a 352 with the FE with the Cruise-O-Matic, whatever trans. It has 20 or 120,000 miles. I'm not sure. It probably is 120. But FEs, you know, they'll run forever if you keep fluids in them. But you know, I don't know. My wife likes it. It's just a nice little cruiser. So I'm gonna go out, and I'm gonna take her to dinner or something. Like I said, I don't like driving anything modern. It just kills the whole mood of existence for me. I don't know. But so we'll take that and cruise around. Sometimes I drive it to work on a day. It's just a nice, pretty original vehicle. Other than I put a tunable distributor in it and a different carb. It originally had a 4100 Autolite, which is a good unit, but it was straight seized up. And so, you know, I just haven't got to it yet, but I'd like to put the 4100s are great carbs. So this is a 600 CFM variant, and I'd like to put it back on. I just, you know, I have some at 600 on it now that does fine. And, you know, it's just a good running and driving cruiser.
You're just not the type of guy that soups stuff up, are you? I mean, you hit your F100 pretty hard in some of those videos, which looks fun, but you just like the era for what it is. You like to cruise it in the classics.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like my hot rodding. The Maverick was already hot rodded, just tuned very poorly, and you know, some bad parts put together. So I made some changes, and it's pretty good. My 65 Galaxy has a YN 174 supercharger on it with a TKO 500 behind it. Wow. And so, which might be the reason why I don't soup too many things up. And you know, that one, I call that my legacy project because it never ends. It's very similar to the Maverick, flat black, whatever, same whole mantra behind that thing. But, you know, it's custom parts here, custom parts there. Now the radiator fan doesn't clear the blower pulley, and now I got to make a custom shroud and all this different stuff. And so I like enjoying cars too. So it's nice. I'll work on it for a little bit, and then I'll get kind of frustrated with it, take a few months off, and just, because you don't want to get frustrated with your hobby, right? And so that's why I have enough that I flip flop around, and there's just something fun about the budget stuff anyway. And that's like the F100 I built basically out of junkyard parts. I have less than 1,800 in that truck altogether. And so, I don't know. That's kind of what I go for. It's the only reason I got that stuff for the Galaxy that I have is the TKO is a returned unit that had something that someone screwed up. So I had to custom machine something to make that work, which luckily I have access to a lot of that stuff through my dad. And then the blower had been dropped off the back of a truck or something. So I had to do some things with that deal. But, largely I just like things simple. It's just fun. It's just fun to put together a truck or a vehicle or whatever, scrounger style. I guess that's kind of my roots, is the whole scrounger mode. And that's what a lot of, when I think of like all these old cars and hot rodding, that's what a lot of people used to do. They'd go to salvage yards, right, and be looking for these one set of cylinder heads that are particular number that are more performance than the others, and
that's what I did.
Yeah. What do you have in yours? GT40 heads?
GT40P heads, and I really, really wanted to go aluminum and all that stuff, but there was just something I couldn't do it. Like it was the same thing when I put buckets into my F100. What you should do, what everyone else does, is buy new buckets, and I just couldn't. I couldn't do it, and I found out that those F100s had Mustang bucket seats in them, so I just found some Mustang bucket seats, found a guy that reproduced the brackets. That's exactly what I did with the. I know there's better heads out there than GT40P heads, but I had to stick with Ford older stuff. I mean, those are 90s heads or something, so they're not that old. But yeah, I just found a guy, and it was funny. We went out to a field. Like he goes, "Oh yeah," he goes, "I have them." My son blew up his motor. We waterlogged it or something, and he goes, "Oh, they're great. Yeah, I have them stored away." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went to his place and love the dude. I still talk to him from time to time, but I show up and he's like, "Oh yeah, come on." And we start walking out to his field. And I was like, "Oh, they're still on the truck?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't bring enough tools for this," in my mind, And we get to the truck that whatever the heck happened that his son did to the engine. The heads are off of it. And then over into it like a truck toolbox with the door half open and then the other one fully open is where he put the GT40P heads. And I was like, "Oh no." I was like, I'm going to have to totally go through this stuff. And that guy brought me back to his shop with the heads, and me and him, he showed me how to just freshen those up. And I loved it because I was like, everyone always thinks that you always have to redo everything on a head or just different like that. Nope, man, bought these heads, brought them all the way back to my, did some, I don't know what it's called, like not valve lapping, but reseated the valves and all that stuff like that, cleaned it up, put new springs on it, and put it on the motor. So yeah. It's pretty much basically junkyard, except I bought it from a guy in the field.
Yeah, that might even be another tier higher than junkyard style.
It was intense. Yeah, he taught me some old school stuff. It was great, man.
I have numerous instances where Ford stuff is just extremely resilient, which is probably another reason I've hung around the Ford thing. I mean, their heads, not to pick on Chevys, but their heads are just a lot thicker. They never really warp. You could torch a Ford engine and it doesn't care. It keeps running somehow. Where a Chevy, your heads turn into the shape of a banana. You have some nanner heads after you hit 230 or something. And so, which I've experienced with my own Chevrolets. But no, that's cool, man. Yeah, you went in and sounds like you got some valve lapping compound in there. And
yeah, it was cool. And my dad was an old school guy, but he never taught me that. I don't think he ever knew it, or we never came to a situation where he's taught it. But out of Ford engines, man, what's your favorite Ford engine? Do you have any like I have a story about an FE lasting long beyond its years when it was supposed to blow up and it didn't. Like, what's your favorite engine family, and you got any cool engine stories where it kind of?
Yeah, well, I stick to the Windsor series because I have a lot of parts for it, but I also just really have a thing for the Windsor series. I guess there's a lot in the aftermarket world. There's just a lot of things for them. They're very prevalent. It's easy to build a stroker. Windsor, they get, this is, no one's going to like this, but they get pretty good fuel economy for what they are. There's a lot of manual transmissions that bolt behind them, between old school all the way up to the modern era. So, you know, and they're just tough. Those Windsor engines are just tough sons of guns, you know,
I
until you
agree.
get to like 500 horsepower and you split, you know, a
Yeah,
302 base. But, you know, the 351 Windsor, that's a stout son of a gun. So
that's gonna
I've
be my
always
next
liked
engine, I
those.
think.
Yeah, that's what I want to put in my F100 for sure. If I, you know, get a little scratch together, it'd be nice to finish off the 393, which some of the reason I own the Maverick is actually because of the 393, but things just happen. And, you know, I don't know, put a decent trans behind that thing and go. It'd be nice to have it's a really good truck. Like right now, the F100 is really good at being a truck and it gets out of its own way pretty dang good. You know, it can scoot along, but just you get that itch, you know, you want to hear that ka-chunk, and, you know, a hot rodder's a hot rodder's a hot rodder through and through. And, you know, every once in a while, you'll just be tempted to mess with things, even if you shouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you ever have anybody with your Windsor Motors come up to you and ask you, like, just from hearing it, ask you if it's a big block, or is that just me? Have I only had that experience?
Back when I had the 289 built, I had a pretty nasty ka-chunk cam in there at one point. After I learned a little bit, I did a cam swap, some stuff with the heads and yada yada, so that, you know, all the dynamic compression would be pretty close to, you know, where it should be. And a lot of folks would be surprised. I'd tell them it was a 289, you know, but straight pipes and an overlap, some overlap and reversion with a cam at idle, it'll do that, where people think you got something big under the hood. But no, Windsors, they're definitely good. You know, I like the FE series as well. I
Oh yeah.
usually don't mess with them. I try not to mess with them too much. I got an F250 that has the 76 390 is the last year for the FEs, at least as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but, you know, has a force behind it. And that thing has unopened 185,000 miles on it now. It's like almost at 200,000 miles. It burns oil and all that, you know, but it still sits there and makes 18 inches of vacuum, and it can pull a horse trailer like it's no tomorrow. So the FEs are definitely probably, I didn't want to like them. You know, I didn't pick them. They picked me.
Well, they're
Okay.
expensive to work on.
Yeah, that's why I kind of just leave them alone. They're good for cruisers and, you know, a work vehicle. And I mean, if you soup them up, back in the day, there was tons of aftermarket for these. But, you know, Offenhauser made a bunch of stuff, but you can't, you'd have to find stuff, people at swap meets, and they want a mint for all those things. I'm like,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
if I'm building something, it's just way easier just to go Windsor. But the FE is a stout son of a gun. It's a shame Paul didn't do more with it, you know,
Yeah.
after the mid 70s. It was a
You
good
know,
unit.
you're right, because to support what you said about the FE2 is that I had a 1973 F250 two-wheel drive long bed single cab, and you never really know. I was told it was a 360, probably was a 352. I really don't know, and I assumed it wasn't the original one. But I got that truck. It was an old roofing truck, and drove it. I don't know, 17 or something, 18 years old, and I drove that thing for years. And one day the head gasket just went, and that thing could burn out. Just burn those tires, do everything, leave marks all along the road. It's great kid car. Probably a terrible kid car, but it was great for me and our truck. And so, but the thing was, the head gasket went finally, and my dad was like, we don't have the money to do this, so he sold it. And the guy called my dad up and said, "Hey, how'd that thing run?" He goes, "I don't know," and he handed the phone to me, and he started asking me questions, and he's like, "How'd that run?" I said, "It ran great." I was like, "The thing didn't skip a beat. That was great." And, it sucked, the head gasket went, and he goes, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Well," he goes, like, I can't remember how many he said, but he's like, over half the valves, the springs are busted, like, in pieces. And he's like, "I was surprised it ran at all," and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, it ran great." So testament to the FE, dude. Like, they just keep on going. They really don't quit. I mean, they really got to be hit hard, I guess, to die. But kind of supports what you said about the FE.
Yeah, they're tough sons of guns. The RPM thing, yeah, they got lighter valve springs, which lends itself nicely to longevities. They don't wear their flat tappet cams out too fast, but you get a little happy with the gas pedal. I got my 76 where I don't spin it past 4, but it'll bend some of those aluminum or they're not aluminum, but whatever. They're
Right.
really thin push rods and whatever, but they're pretty good. It's just like that Windsor. Like I said, when I picked up my F100, it had that 289 with 6 289 rods and 2 302 rods on a 289 crank, and the way different sized CC cylinder heads on it and 90 weight in it. And I drove it like I actually did. We got it running, and I drove that thing like that for probably at least 1,000 miles before, because I didn't want to touch it because I had a running and driving truck at that point. I was
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially as a kid, as I didn't know. I thought, oh no, we're going to work on this thing and it's going to get ruined. Little did I know it was absolutely ruined every which way from Sunday
Right.
at that point. But no, I mean, I don't know. Fords, they're just tough.
They are, man. You're absolutely right. Your F100. So I thought it was a T5, but it's a TKO.
The F100 right now is a T5.
Okay.
I'd like to get a little scratch together, and I got a TKO in my 65 Galaxy.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's.
I'd like to, if I put a 393 in there, the T5 is probably fine until you just start really romping on it with some horsepower like that. It might not hold up. That's what everyone says online. Yeah. Okay, everyone's always said that about them. I've never had any issues with my T5. Now, I had originally, so way back when I put this truck together the first time around, it had my dad and I, we went to a salvage yard and found this 4-banger Mustang that had this T5. And I don't know how he got this idea. This T5 thing was actually originally his idea, and he deserves a lot of the credit for this swap. This was before people were even doing this thing. I don't know what he read. He worked the night shift at John Deere. I don't know what he read on break or something, but he got this wild hair and thought, I think he saw where people had started to put them in Mustangs. He's like, well, dang old heck, son, let's put one of those in the F100. He didn't like the 3-speed either. And so we pulled this 4-banger 5-speed, which has completely different gear ratios. It was like an 84 Mustang or something. I don't know. It's the most undesirable T5 you could ever have, in theory, online. That's what everyone says. So we put that thing in, and dude, I drove that thing. That car had like 180, some ridiculous amount of miles on that Fox body. So that trans was old. And we put that thing in there, and I drove that thing for, I don't know, probably 50 or 60,000 miles. And I finally pulled it this winter and put a different T5 in it. The output shaft had got enough play in it where it just slinged a little bit of transmission fluid. And I thought, okay, it's lived a full life, that thing. It deserves retirement. So I had a different T5 also used, but it was the V8 variant, which is nice because now I cruise down the highway at 70 miles an hour at 1,800 RPM, and the 302 has no problem pulling it along at that RPM. Previously, it was close to like 70. It was like 2,500. The overdrive it has different overdrive ratios on those two different T5 variants, but I've never been able to kill one. And I'm, anyone who knows me in person will tell you I'm pretty relentless with that gas pedal in that truck from time to time, and it's always held up, man. I mean, I don't know.
No, you're right.
People say they're what they are, but they've always been fine for me, I guess.
I mean, I think they're just a fun transmission, and they lasted well for Mustangs and even Camaros and even I think S10s. But I mean, just like anything, if you're doing serious racing, then you need a serious racing transmission, But I don't know. I'm going to try to kill this T5, so maybe we'll see about that. I'll have to probably hit you up here for some information, you and Craig, about how to fix the T5 or whatever, or so on.
Yeah, I don't know if you will. You give that thing a good what for, and I bet you it'll just hang right in there.
Well, I hope so.
As long as you're not doing like 5,000 RPM clutch dumps, I bet you'll be just fine. I mean,
I think any transmission with that kind of clutch dump, it's going to be hurting pretty bad. You know what I mean? So whether it's a T5 or not.
Yeah, and I think that's where folks have gotten a false narrative for the T5. It's just the T5 happened to be in the Mustang, and people happened to murder it by doing 5,000 RPM clutch dumps. I'm like, well, yeah, dude. I mean, that's racing stuff. You got to pull it down and rebuild things all the time when you're beating on it like that. So I don't know. And mine's the same way. I have how did you got a T5 in your truck, right? I'm not being stupid.
I haven't put the T5 in yet, so I'm still on the R&D, I guess it would be kind of thing. You're still doing my research.
And you have an auto, right?
Everything's out of it now, but I had a C4,
Okay. Now I have seen there's a few different ways that folks can go about it. So I had originally a manual truck, right? So I still had the Z bar and everything in place and the manual bell housing. So, my job for me
was pretty easy. There was a few extra things when I added the roller engine when I went away from the old school one, which I can talk about in a second. But I mean, the Z-Bar, I've always loved Z-Bar stuff. This Maverick has a Z-Bar that someone put in it from a Mustang, whatever. It's just pretty resilient, I guess, and easy to work with. But, you know, I just had to put an adapter plate on there, which my dad actually machined that one. He's a machinist at Deere, and he has a mill at home and whatever, and he fabbed the one we had. And that now I think someone makes that adapter plate. What's the, God dang, if I could remember the name of it, but
yeah, I don't know.
They actually manufacture these adapter plates now. But so mine was really simple in that way. And that's how it is, man. I just got like a stock clutch in the thing and everything, nothing special for it. But you with being previously an automatic, you know, some people do a cable conversion. If you don't have a pedal, I think Willwood, there's a lot of groups that have like an add a pedal type thing for a hydraulic setup. So, and you could, I think actually the V8 Ranger guys do this stuff a lot. At least as far as the slave cylinder that they use down on the bell housing and how all that mounts up. But so there is groups like Willwood, and I think there's a few more now that it's like an add a pedal deal where it's the pedal and the master cylinder for the hydraulic clutch all in one. And dude, that just looks like a cakewalk. You know, I've always looked for manual cars because I'm looking for the Z-Bar stuff because I like to put, you know, T5s and other manuals in things. So I've always avoided automatics. But now, like for you with, you know, in our modern day and age, you know, that seems like the easiest way to go. I haven't done it, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Right. But I've seen a few of them in person now, and the cable routing and everything. It's just you're not trying to fight headers. God help me, dude. Long tube headers have always been the bane of my existence, trying to get around. That's
why I just do shorty headers, dude.
Yeah, you're smart. You're smart. Everyone do what you did. Don't do what I do. Long tube headers, if you like cussing and hitting your head and crawling under your vehicle and taking the engine in and out 30 times to get all to work, you know, be my guest. But if you're going to put a muffler on the thing, long tube headers are completely pointless. Just put shorties, or there's even mid lengths now. But yeah, for you, like that hydraulic add a pedal, the only thing that I would say, the fellas that I've seen that do it, you know, if I were to do it, I'd add a reinforcement plate because I actually can see, you know, I wasn't going to tell them, I'd feel bad telling them, you know, to their face and they're showing me their truck, but I can see their firewall kind of bend. And I mean, that's kind of unsavory. But if you just add a little reinforcement plate to, you know, spread that force out across a larger area of your firewall, you'd probably be totally fine. I mean, I'm sure there's documentation of folks doing that. And at some point, you know, I just for the fun of it, I do want to do one of those add a pedal setups and put a manual in a car that was otherwise set up to be an automatic previously. So when I got into programming, I had to talk to, you know, the quote unquote ThunderHead289's with carburetors, but of programming, you know, to figure out what the heck I was doing with that. So, you know, everyone knows their own thing.
Is that your day job, right? Doing some programming?
Yeah. Electromechanical, you know, all the fab for the mechanisms, pneumatic cylinders, and then controlling all that with, you know, variable feedback sensors and process loops to, you know, basically hit go on a machine that makes a part, you know, and different settings and whatever that pull in for different part numbers. But I'll keep all that nerd stuff out of this conversation.
It's funny, you come home and work on carburetors and make videos about carburetors, and much of your YouTube channel is about carburetors, and yet you go and you do all this stuff that you just said that I couldn't even repeat. You know, it's kind of funny. You think you'd be the like fuel injection EFI guy or whatever, you know.
No, I've always liked to go against the grain, you know. So I I like carbs. So a carburetor is like a perfect harmonious blend of physics and fluid dynamics. Okay, so I just have a lot of appreciation for the engine. It's coming from an engineering field. I'm not a real engineer, actually. I'm a pretengineer. It's mostly all self-taught stuff, but it served me well in life as I've gone forward. But you know, a carburetor.
Do we just call that a Lukeism that you just said right there?
A pretengineer. I probably can't trademark that term, but I'm sure I've heard that somewhere before. But I'm definitely what I would a pretengineer, a hillbilly engineer of sorts. But no, I mean, like, I don't even know how they made those things, dude. Would someone sit down at a drafting table and make them out of clay and be like, yeah, this is good. Let's figure out how to make a cast of this and whatever. So, I mean, people in the day, and that's why I kind of like this older era stuff. I mean, I just really think that people were way smarter, at least they were a lot more in tune with the physical world than we are today. There's plenty of hyper intelligent people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on the web and doing different things with that. But those people from the 60s and way before that, I mean, that was just a different type of knowledge. It's almost been lost with time. So it hurts me
Oh yeah.
when people talk crap about carburetors. I'm like, it's not the carburetor, guys. It's, you know, it's largely just, it's not that you're stupid either. It's just a lack of knowledge that's been transferred onto you from a previous era. And that's why I've always just tried to bridge the gap between the two as I've learned and I figured out. And I don't know everything, you know. There's people like, I used to talk to Barry Grant before that dude just went, he just like disappeared off face of the earth. I don't know what happened to Barry Grant, but he's one of the guys I used to talk to and ask a lot of questions. And that guy was like a wealth of knowledge. You know, if you were to compare me even right now to him, you know, like I have like a cornflakes level knowledge and a whole box of cereal. I guess that dude really knew some stuff. But it's, you know, carburetors are great. If you know what you're doing, they're just fine.
I need to dive into carbs and just learn the stuff. I need to go watch your videos again.
I got a little bit of this, that, and the other thing on there. I think I even have video. You mentioned the 360 or the 390. I have a very banjo pickin'-esque video. I'm like, well, this is how you can tell if you have a 360 or a 390, and it's on my F250 that has the 390 in it. And so you can just simply measure the stroke between the two of those because it's ever so slightly different. You just stick something in and I do this all in video, but you can stick anything in a cylinder and then just start making marks and turn that engine over. And basically your highest mark and your lowest mark, I mean, it's not going to be perfect because you're at kind of an angle, but there's enough difference between the 360 and the 390. You should be able to tell the difference between the two. And I don't have all the knowledge on FE, you know, the difference between the 352, 360, and 390. Pretty sure a 360 is a 390 block, maybe a 352 crank and rods, and they have some weird pistons that had a terrible quench. You know, they sit, the term is down in the hole. They sit way down in the hole, which is super not ideal for pre-detonation and quench. So I don't know why Ford did that. That was an emissions engine or whatever. They can run great, but it's like some weird combination of things. And, you know, hopefully someone corrects me here, as I don't know, as I've never really looked into it too in depth, you know, but there's the FEs, they're weird.
They are. Yeah. And I mean, what's funny is the Y blocks are even weirder to me anyway. You know, it's like, have you ever worked on a Y block? It's the predecessor to an FE. It's just like, I don't know how they run, honestly, but they do till the end of time.
I've avoided them like the plague because maybe this is wrong too, but it seems like in sifting through my memory bank that there were things that like changed every year and their interchangeability of different parts is very poor. There's something on the Y blocks, so I've always avoided. And I think even maybe the flatheads are like that too. There's just a lot of differences throughout the years that make it more difficult. You know, a Windsor is pretty universal, other than when they went to the one-piece rear main seal, which, you know, I don't know all the tech specs on things. Maybe that was 78, maybe that was 82, 83, and then they went to the roller cam. You know, which for me, that actually posed a problem when they changed the balance, the imbalance, or whatever you would call it, when they went to the 50 ounce with doing the T5s with the Z bars, because a lot of the Z bars, they pivot off the block. Okay. And so that gets a little more tricky because now you lost that pivot on the roller engine, but someone does make an adapter pivot that bolts to your bell housing that I later found. And that's what I have in my F100. Now it kind of remanufactures in a way that pivot point for the Z bar, and then everything's good to go. But you know, I don't know. There's another reason why I've stuck with Windsors. I mean, they're all super similar. I wish Ford would have copied Chevy with their timing cover and water pump thing, because the Windsor water pump, bud, there is so many different variants, reverse flows.
It sucks. Yeah, I was talking to Quick Performance, and they make mainly Chevy pulley systems, and they, you know, and I said, hey, let's do some Ford stuff, and they asked me about the water pumps, and I was like, right, I remember now why it's so hard for you guys to do, because I'm like, well, if you get the roller engine, that means the pump runs a different way, but you can't just change the pump, you got to change the timing chain cover, either the case or whatever. It's just like, I was like, yeah, that's actually a huge pain in the butt, but yeah, you're absolutely right, it sucks.
Just ridiculousness of what you can get away with engines. But yeah, I mean, the water pump stuff and all that, it gets even weirder. Okay, now you're trying to put harmonic balance on, right? Now your timing marks are all over. So you know, and you have different timing pointers that could be here, there, and everywhere. There's like 3 different locations on a Ford Windsor series that they can be. So honestly, what I've taken to doing, and I try to set it up right, you know, of course, but if I buy something and it's not right, I had a 302 swapped Mazda RX-7 once upon a time. Okay. It had a harmonic balancer that wasn't for, you know, it was the right imbalance. When they went to roller, it's the 50 ounce. And then, you know, and so I can really go down a path of tech on this. So I'll try and avoid it, because trying to make things work together. And I have videos on all that, but it's tricky. But once you know, you know. But a trick that you can do if you don't know, you don't want to mess with all that. You know, you can just get a simple piston stop, turn the engine over by hand, and then, you know, just find something on the timing cover to line that up with, right? Okay, so now you have 2 marks, because your engine won't make a full rotation. You have 2 marks on your harmonic balancer now, and then you just measure across those 2, and the point in between is true top dead center. And then if you use a dial back timing light, then all you need to do is have that TDC mark, and then you can do all your timing events and track everything. So, you know, and that's what I always try and tell people to do. If it just makes all that a lot easier with the Windsors.
You're right. I had the same issue. The engine that was in my truck was a 73 or 74 Falcon 302, and it didn't have the pointer. Like, it didn't have anything. So I literally just winged it. Like, and I learned how to adjust my timing just by hearing it, you know, just listening, going, yep, that sounds about right. There's no pinging. There's no, you know, it's not dying on me. So I would just turn my distributor, trying to find, you know, some good timing sound, you know. But, yeah.
That reminds me of, back when I was a kid, that's what I was doing, messing with it. And I'd be like 30 minutes away from home, like 17. And I did something stupid with my distributor, and then it was pinging like crazy. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And I had no idea. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I'd start just turning the thing. And that was before I even, you know, you can tell by ear if you're too far advanced, part throttle pin. Right. You know, I do a lot of, you know, it's very, you know, how would I say, like, more binary type tech. Like, it's a 1 or a 0. It's a yes or a no scenario. Like, it's hard to, like, if I try to explain to someone how to tune mix screws by ear, which I can do just fine. Like, how do I explain that? You know, there's no way to put that into words. And so that's why I use a lot of different,
just hear it.
Yeah. That's why I do a lot of different gauges and things, you know, and after a while, you know, you get pretty in tune with what rich sounds like, what rich smells like. Lean actually smells very similar to rich, because it's also an inefficient burn, and, you know, ignition timing and fueling, your air fuel ratio, all that actually very much interconnect, more so than folks think. And so there's a lot of things over time you can pick up by ear. And, you know, a lot of folks say that, you know, well, you just can't do things by ear. I'm like, no, I mean, I can. I just don't do that in video, because how do I explain it to you? There's no way to do that. But if I grab someone on like Power Tour, someone's broke down, you know, we can get them going, you know, just with nothing more than a screwdriver and like a 1/2-inch wrench, maybe whatever the hold down bolt is for the distributor. And you can just go and get all your initial settings set in. They can cruise down the road just fine, you know. But
yeah, you're right.
It's all good stuff. Yeah, a lot of folks, you know, I don't have points on any of my stuff. You mentioned points earlier. You know, points are fine. There's nothing wrong with points. I largely just run Pertronix Igniter 3 units. It's a very nice tunable unit. They're pro billet distributor, very easily tunable. You can adjust your timing curves very easy. You have a advanced stop limiter, and they're very affordable. And I have like the one that's in my F100 right now. It's been in 3 different engines, and it's amassed like, I don't know, 80,000 miles or something, 60 or 80,000 miles, many miles, and it's been fine. That, you know, I will say though, you know, if you're looking at a Pertronix unit, I don't know why you would buy the Pertronix Igniter 1 or Igniter 2 module. I don't know why those are still sold. Maybe there's something those do that I don't know, but the Igniter 3 is definitely the one to get. I assume that's like the 3rd variant as they went through and made them better and better. So that's a good one to do. And even you can even replace your points with one of those modules. And so, and that works great, but I always opt for the full-blown distributor. The drawback to Fords, the drawback is that they're not easy to adjust as far as the timing curves go. In HEI, you pull that rotor off and you can get to all your springs and everything real easy. Fords, it's under the advanced plate. and it's kind of a bear. You know, the Igniter 3 Pro billet unit, they put all that stuff on top, so it's very easy to work with. And oftentimes, you know, I just see Fords underperform because folks just have lazy timing curves because they didn't mess with it. It's the stock. You have to imagine when these rolled out, all these cars were under warranty, so their timing curves were very conservative. You know, they're not firing that cylinder charge when that piston is like at the most optimum point in its stroke. You know, it's somewhere down from TDC when the ignition timing is later, and you're just leaving power on the table. You know, so I mean, it's fine. It's fine for cruisers, fine for drivers. You know, but there's a reason that it's like that. And even though a book, you know, a Ford book might say this is where your timing events should be for a stock engine, you know, yada yada. You have to remember they did that because, you know, everything was under warranty then, and you know, they had some safety margin built into that.
Yeah, you're right. I actually had the one of those points kit put on my points distributor, and it did not work very well at all. But I've had some people swear by them. Like, so I from that point on, I swapped to distributors, like full on distributors. I went with Speedmaster, and they've done me good so far. But because I was like a kid that was broke, you know, so I really wanted an affordable option, and I was hoping I think it was Petronix points illuminator kit or something like that, but it didn't work very well at all actually. But maybe it was the guy that installed it, you know.
Well, and the other thing that folks, and Petronix gets a bad rap for specifically for their module that you replace points with, and this is why. So Fords have a resistive lead. So you have a 12-volt system, right? But your Petronix or your ignition system, if it's points, it's going to have a resistive lead, similar to how a Chrysler has a ballast resistor. And so it basically drops that voltage down so you don't burn your points up. You know, you get a lot more longevity out of them with that resistive lead. And you give up some of your hotter spark that you would otherwise have. But so what a lot of folks do when they install that Petronix replacement module, where it's still your points distributor, but you've taken your points out and putting that Petronix module in, is they leave that resistive lead, I guess, in there. And so the Petronix module is only seeing like 7 volts or whatever, and they're not designed to operate at that voltage. And you can have a whole bunch of anomalies. That was actually my 64 Galaxy that I bought. Someone had done that with it. And even when I got it going, it ran like absolute garbage. And then I got my multimeter out, probed the positive terminal on the coil, put the negative lead, the thing on the battery, and sure enough, the key on, I was like, yep, like 6.5, 7 volts or somewhere in there. I'm like, yep, sure enough. And so I just went and found a hot lead that was on an ignition source, you know, so key on, it's hot. And then I wired that in just real temporary just to check. And then it ran great, you know, once I had a different carburetor on there. And I did all this with, it's not like I changed carburetors also. No, it was like the same carburetor ran like garbage, got rid of the resistant lead, put it back in, then it ran great. So that's one thing that, and I know Petronix says a lot, but I'm like everyone else, dude. I don't read instructions. You know, that's why I make YouTube videos. But I know that's a big thing. Folks kind of get, you know, it's just a hard thing to catch. I was lucky. My first Petronix I ever had, someone had already monkeyed with the wiring very heavily in the vehicle. I was unaware that you're supposed to remove this resistive lead, but someone else already had. So I got lucky. But then later on, you know, meeting with Petronix and talking to them on things like Power Tour and stuff, you know, somehow that came up. And then, you know, sure enough, I got that Galaxy a couple of years back, and boom, there it was, that resistive lead. Actually, my F100 for the first time in 8 years, I don't know if you saw it, but I broke down on the side of the road. First time.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, and that was that Petronix unit, and actually the ground strap had snapped off inside the thing. So I just ran the auxiliary wire through it and got down the road. But I can't fault it. I mean, 60 or 80,000 miles, whatever. It was a numerous sum of miles that I put on that truck before that thing popped. So I don't know. You know, they don't pay me to say nothing. I don't really do sellout stuff. So I just like Petronix. Just like I said, Edelbrock. I don't run Edelbrocks, but I think they're a great company and a great group of folks also.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. You know, the old school stuff. Just I want to get back to talking some more specs on your truck, but you know, some old school stuff. This one time, this guy he was a coworker of mine, and he couldn't start his truck. and it was like, I don't know, it was in the 80s or something, and he couldn't start it, and I went out there, and I just thought of this thing that my dad taught me, and so I got a screwdriver and a rag, and I took it and I crossed the starter solenoid, and it started the truck up, and the dude looked at me like I had just like magically did something, you know what I mean? And I was like, it's just normal stuff to do right there, you know. And I think
it's just it's that whole mechanism thing that's just fun to work with, just because of the mechanical nature of it. I mean, the 30s, 40s, and 50s was a very mechanized age in like the physical world, I guess. And
yeah,
I don't know, like that's the same mantra with points and stuff. It's just kind of fun to do, you know. And all my revival vehicles, the old trucks, they've all been points, you know. And so I went through in those videos how to test out different things, I think I even have how to set the point gap and all that in there. I wish the biggest thing with points is you can never get a condenser that's not a piece of crap anymore. They're all super Chinesium. And so it seems like I burn up condensers all the time on revival vehicles, or it takes like I go through 3 and then it's fine. Then the third one, whatever, then the thing just goes along like normal. So even with the resistive bleed, it's not like I've removed that or anything either. It's just it's just fine. So
you know,
that stuff's cool, man.
Well, that's cool, man. So back to your F100. What rear ratio do you have in the back? I assume it's still a 9-inch.
It is a 9-inch. It's the OG everything from when I got the truck.
Wow.
It was originally a 6-cylinder, a 300 inline 6, I think.
You don't think you had 410 gears in the back, do you?
I don't, you know, when I try and math it out, at one time when I was younger, I mathed it out, and I thought, you know, I had that. I was not aware that I had a different ratio in my T5 at that time. So I had thought previously I had like 410s. And then, you know, as I got older and figured out how to use some Google foo, then I figured out, yeah, it's probably more so like, oh, and there's the cop going right by, rubbernecking it right at me. But it's not today, he said. He said that's just a weird dude sitting over there. No, it's a 370 one-wheel peeler, as far as I know.
That's cool. I mean, you know, are you ever wanting to go, you know, and change it from a 1-legger to a 2-legger?
If, you know, because like I said, I've tried to make the truck, the whole mantra of the thing is just boneyard style. Now, if I ever do just throw that to the wind and do put like a 393 in there and a TKO behind it and whatever, which need a little bit of money before we would do something like that. But at that point, I would go ahead and swap it to a, you know, everyone's going to cringe. I always call them posi units, you know, whatever. I know that's a Chevy term, but what universal term, guys? It's like Kleenex, okay?
Yeah,
you know?
like big block or whatever.
I know. I always have to I have a really hard time without trying not to say small block Fords. That's not. I try and say the Windsor, the Windsor.
Because it's like families in Ford, and there, you know, in Chevy they had they had 2 350s, so they had to call it big or small block and stuff. But so you thought about putting a posi track, God help us, in the back of for your truck?
Yeah, you know, if I ever did go that route, I'd do it all. It'd be all fresh stuff. I'd have the nice piece about the 9-inch is that center section comes out, and I'd redo the whole thing. You know, I wouldn't mess around with doing old parts. As much as I've enjoyed it, has bit me enough times that I'm like, I'll just save the money, you know, donate plasma or whatever until I have enough scratch to do it with all new parts. And then, you know, because I drive this stuff, it's not like weekender things. It's like I drive to work every day, so it has to work. And so, you know, I'd probably do that right. It'd be a new TKO. You know, I wouldn't try and sift the internet for ones. You know, if someone put a TKO on something, they were beating on it. So I'd try and go that route. But no, I mean, it's a nice point truck the way it is. And like I said, you never, dude. And the first thing that people say when they see it in person is they're like, it's so quiet. It didn't start life with a quiet engine, but now this roller 302 that's otherwise stock, other than converted to carb from this 94 Bronco, like it must have been the truckest of all truck cams. I mean, you can put this setup in second gear and let off the clutch, and the thing will just start going down the road. No gas pedal. It's you think the thing's like a diesel or something, but it is so quiet. I got a 390 CFM carb on it right now for the economy of it, and dude, it barely uses any fuel at idle. It is it's straight piped. The thing has long tube headers, and it is straight piped. It is so quiet.
You think it's that mild cam that's in it?
Oh, it's got to be. Well, I mean, a lot of sound comes from just the more you open the throttle, the louder something gets, right? It's
Right. Yeah.
the more cylinder charge you're putting in, and the throttle on your carburetor acts like a valve to, your engine's just basically a glorified air pump. So you're just not getting a lot of volume of particles in there. And so when that ignites and everything, it's just not that loud, which it's the sign of efficiency. I mean, that thing sitting there, everything's so good at that low RPM. That cam is so set up for low RPM things that it just doesn't take a whole lot of fuel at all to keep that thing running, where if you get a cam with a lot of overlap and reversion, and it just takes a lot to keep that thing going at idle, because the cam is actually out of, it's outside of its RPM range, so it's way less efficient. So you get that good ka-chunk and everything. But no, I like it that way. And when you romp on it, the funny thing, it's so quiet, but if you romp on that thing, it is, because it's straight pipe, that sucker gets real loud real fast, especially, that little carburetor. I got the lightest secondary spring in that 390 CFM Holly. And when that thing opens up, that thing's just screaming, like rattles your organs. So it, it's like you kind of have your cake and eat it too. You don't have to, if you don't want to have to be driving a hot rod all the time, someone can ride with you, you can have a conversation, just drive it like normal. But when you open it up, it'll really go. But
that's why I got the E303 cam, the roller cam for my, it's going to be choppy, but it's also not going to be terrible to start. So I'm told. So hopefully it sticks to that at all. I don't know, but that's kind of why I went with 498 lift or whatever it was. It isn't anything crazy. I hope that's what the case is anyway. Drivability.
It'll be interesting to see. I've never had an E303 and an engine that deserved it. My Fox body had the E303 cam in it, which that's a whole nother level of debacle build that a previous owner did that I won't get into. But it was an 84 block and had the factory 84 heads, which are, boat anchors.
Right.
But so you didn't have a lot of dynamic compression to play with, and putting a cam in, it was pretty unsavory, but it had a pretty good idle note to it. My go-to cam line is typically the XE series for flat tappets. I like a good drivable and hot roddable cam is the XE 268. And then as far as the rollers go, the XE 266 HR or something down around in there is really good for a 302 base. I think it'll serve you just fine. There's nothing, I mean, people run E-cams for years and years. It's got a little more overlap and everything.
How did the E303 do on cold start?
Just fine. I have a video where I started the Fox body. It was -6 degrees outside. I drove that as my daily driver, and so it fired up just fine. Pull the choke. If you have everything tuned right for a cam, I mean, they'll be just fine.
Okay, you need to hit up the Craig 909. He just got a Fox body, man.
I saw that.
I saw that. Pointers, yeah.
I'm jealous. I've been banned because Fox bodies are so ugly. I've been banned at the home front from Fox body stuff anymore. So I'm living vicariously through one of my coworkers. I twisted his arm to get a Fox body with a 351 Windsor that someone had, goofed on the top end of it, and it kind of flew apart. So we redid the top end on that thing, and it's out and about now. I need to do some videos on it. I kind of just was like, oh, it's done, and I walked away. But maybe they want an update. I don't know. It's whatever. We're just out to enjoy the cars.
It's funny. I got banned, I guess is a heavy word, but my fiance begs me not to get a Fox body. She doesn't think. I don't think she even knows what a Fox body is, but when I show it to her, she's like, "Oh, please, no!" I'm like, "All right, I'll go get a unibody then, a short bed unibody." That's all. She's like, "Fine, just anything." I even said I get a DeLorean. She's like, "All right, just don't get whatever that is." I don't know what it is about. I don't know what it is about girls that do not like Fox bodies. I'm sure right now there's some that are listening and they're like, "Oh, I love them," but yeah, it's weird. Something about Fox bodies. These people don't like them. I'm like, all right, whatever.
I think the day and age now, through the late 2000s and mid-teens, early teens, I mean, those were like ghetto wagons. Okay, you go to the sketchy part of town and it was G-body stuff and Fox bodies, and they were always really ratty, and it was always the big sketch. So I think that's what my wife thinks of them. There's this the Quad Cities, there's Rock Island. She's like, that's a Rock Island car. I'm like, I don't think so anymore. People actually like these now. But,
Right. Yeah, they're popular. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's the perfect blend of modern and old school tech. That's
I
what
think
I
so.
like about them.
And they're
Very-
lightweight, which is why everyone uses them.
Yeah, that's also why they twist in half. I wouldn't know nothing about that though.
Story for another time.
Yeah, that's why I don't have a Fox body anymore. I ripped the torque box. Both the rear torque boxes
Oh, man.
ripped right out. So I had a 456 rear gear. Dude, I was relentless, unmerciful that car. So if someone digs up Junkyard Digs or ThunderHead289 video of Power Tour 2017, I just flogged that thing the whole way through it. So it was a good rig. But
Cool,
anyway.
man.
Yeah, you got a good
else?
stance on your F100.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I did I think the previous owner took a couple leaf springs out of the rear. I think I've yet to actually sit down and count them, and then go over to another one and count them. But it feels like they did. And then in the front, I did the Ford Explorer coil spring swap, and then I cut a coil off. But it's still pretty nice, and it kind of gives it a mean mugging look. I like it. Murdered out.
It has a good stance. Everyone always says mine has a decent stance to it, but see, mine was the all natural stance from back. It was like the only truck my dad and I had when I was a kid, and we loaded the back of that thing like to the way more than you should with like flagstone one time. It always sat up, like kind of hiked up in the rear end, but it probably kind of clapped out the rear springs, and then the front just being, it's a 200,000 mile truck. They're kind of just organically lowered a little bit. So now the truck sits level and like low, but not too low for a long bed, but it has a nice stance. But you did yours right. I did mine like, my truck went to the school of hard knocks.
I think you did yours right, because when someone comes up to you and they say, "Hey, how'd you lower your truck?" You'd be like, "Time."
Time.
Being worked too hard, overloading it. So, which is the way you should lower a truck. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know. I tried to mimic, trucks like yours.
Yeah, it's a unique unit, but it rides nice. So and I've never done kingpins before, and I really don't want to. So I just keep those suckers good and greased and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I don't want to. Did you do kingpins on yours at all, or you got your factory ones in there yet?
So hey, what year's your truck?
74.
Yes. So I took mine out of I got it from a guy who took his I-beams out of his 74 and sold them to me. No, I've never done them, but I'm looking into it, and there's some good information on fortification.com in the tech section. Leave it up to Ford and change the kingpin like 4 or 5 times. Yeah, I haven't yet, and hopefully I never have to. But
just crawl under there every oil change, and give it a pump of grease or two.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah,
that's what I do.
Just fill in the gap. Yeah, fill in the gap there, and then all right. Well, that's cool, man. This is a good conversation, dude. I'm having fun here. I like BSing.
Yeah, dude. Sometime we'll have to be. Are you gonna do Power Tour 2021 or whatever it is?
I'm gonna have you send me the dates on it, because I think I'm gonna take it. Like, I've done Grand Nationals a few times. I've always done Texoma. Well, not always, but I've done most of the Texomas, and I've always done Branson F100 show. So I think if you're going, then I'll go. How about that? I'll find a way to go.
Well, I'll be there, and that's for sure. I took the F100 in 2019, and it ran the whole. I think it was like, for me, it was a 3,000 mile round trip. And worst thing I did was drive over a nail, and I put a tire plug in it, and just kept sending it. So, no, I mean, it's cool stuff.
I gotta put my engine in, so we'll see. We'll see how good I do on putting the engine in, and see if I can make it to the 2021.
You can do it. I have faith. I'll harass you. I'll harass you on Messenger. Be like, "Get to it, son. Don't let your wife or your girlfriend or wife, or now. Don't let her keep you from that."
There you go. Yeah, I've got two or three friends talked one day and just putting the entire engine into the truck, because it's been a matter of months now that it's just been sitting out, and everyone's just like, "Craig, we need you to come to car shows. Go, we'll come over. We'll just help you put it in," because like I just work all the time, and then if I'm not working, I'm doing something with Ford F100 World or podcast or something. So I'll get her done. I'll do my best. Try to make it to the 2021 Power Tour. I think that's a good goal.
Yeah, it's a shortened version this year because of things that I don't like to talk about. But it so they shortened it because they could only get a few folks that would agree. But now if they would have just waited maybe a month to decide where they were going to do the thing. But anyway, it starts in like Norwalk, Ohio, and then goes through Illinois. So it's pretty close to the both of us. and it's 5 days. And what I like about it versus car shows, you know, I like to drive my stuff. I'm a little biased that way where, you know, car shows are kind of fun to go and sit and whatever. But like Power Tour is basically, so this year it'll be 5 different locations over 5 different days. And it's like 3 or 4 hour drive in between all of them. So it's cool because it's like 5,000, 10,000 cars. It's a number of cars, but then it's also people driving them too. So you get like really people that have a passion for it. And it's just fun. I mean, it's fun. You're cruising. You look around, you're like, so last couple years ago, I guess we didn't do it in 2020. You know, like going through the mountains and you look around, it's just like all classic cars, you know, and drivers, like stuff that people actually drive. It's not limited to classic cars, but you know, there's a very large presence of like 60s, 70s, and 80s cars. And you know, everyone's just talking. People break down all the time, and that's the most fun, is like fixing stuff on the side of the road. You're laying there at 2 a.m. Doesn't sound fun. I know it doesn't sound fun, but when you're in the moment, dude, it's just so much fun. I mean, there's so much camaraderie and whatever. And it's like, it feels like how it used to be, you know, back in the day when people used to go out to the boonies and drag race with their 60s cars and whatever, and they were tuning them and working on them, have the hood open. You know, now if someone sees you with your hood open, they think there's something wrong with you. But you know, back then on Power Tour, it's just a normal sight to see people monkeying with stuff. And I don't know, it's just a good old time. I highly recommend it. You know, I only do like 2 things a year typically. It's the Good Guys car show just because of proximity. I'm like right next to the thing over the 4th of July, and then I do Power Tour. So
cool. I need to, if I ever get around to do it, I need to make sure you make it out to the 400 World Show if I ever do it. But yeah, your Power Tour, I think you know, it reminds me of when I was a kid. My dad drove a 64 F100 as a daily, and we went down home, which was like 2.5 hours away. And we would, you know, go drive along, and then the truck would act funny one time, and he pulled over, and my dad had an extra fuel pump, and we just swapped out a fuel pump and then jumped back into it and took off. Like there wasn't any computer sensors and module this or anything like that. It was just like we're at a rest stop, you know, and people are coming over and helping us put a freaking fuel pump into a 1964 straight 6, blah blah blah. It was maybe I should go back to memory lane there and do Power Tour and just drive around, and hopefully I'm the one not breaking down, but you know, help people that break down or just enjoy the incredibly uncomfortable ride of a 1968 F100, even with slightly modified suspension. I think I should do it. You're right.
You should. Yeah, you'll get all that good back sweat going, you know. That's what it's about.
I can't wait. Turn on my air conditioner, which is the little vent next to me, you know.
The little slider on the floor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kick it open.
Though.
Yeah,
the wing windows, they make it nice.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just, you know, my AC is just how fast I go, I guess, you know. So there you go.
Just go faster.
That's cool, man. Well, hey, man, thank you so much. This was a great talk. Thank you for cutting out, you know, a little bit of time for me and everything like that. Man, F100 Talk listeners, Luke Finley. Hey, man, do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, I think it's my YouTube handle.
Okay.
All the same.
All right, guys, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. If you look up ThunderHead289, you'll find Luke Finley. And if you're watching this video, so you guys know his YouTube channel, the Facebook page is a great place where other guys too will actually answer your questions, and Luke will answer your questions if you guys have questions about it. I sometimes make it a go-to to ask questions and everything, and you know, and then of course, I don't know, are you going to go into any other platform, or are you going to stick to Facebook, and are you a TikTok guy?
No, I'm an old timer. All these kids with their TikToks and their tweeters and whatever. I don't know what's going on with any of that stuff. So I'm always slow. I'm slow to everything.
I was hoping you'd say that, honestly. So yeah, okay, guys, find them on the old school platforms, YouTube and Facebook, and a little bit of Instagram there. So that's cool, man. You know, ThunderHead289, guys, Junkyard Digs. You know, he even got to hang out with the Craig 909 and what was the guy, Derek?
Yeah, Derek, Vice Grip Garage.
Vice Grip Garage, there you go.
Dylan McCool, that's his straight up YouTube name, is his actual name. But
oh, really? He
does a bunch of Mopar stuff. He's usually a guy that, you know, he's down in Tennessee down there. We do Power Tour and stuff with him too. He's got those guys got like 400 to 700,000 subscriber YouTube channels. You know, I'm just a little guy. I just do the tech, and I come along. They're like,
I'm just a little guy at 200,000
fix it.
subscribers. Yeah. Yeah.
Shoot.
No, dude, you help out a lot of people, man, and I think you should keep it up. No matter what life throws at you, and just keep informing people. You know, like you told me a while back, you were like, "Oh, I think I've shared everything I know," and then bam, guess what? Like since then, you've like busted out 5 videos. So I think you should keep it up, man. You're genuine, and you know your stuff, and you don't put out any false information just for the sake of putting out a video. You actually do your research and you share what you know, man. I think you should keep it up, and I hope you do, man. And yeah, I think F100 Talk here, guys. If you guys like this video, definitely, comment down below, leave, your guys', for lack of a better word, vote, and ask questions and so on. And definitely head over to ThunderHead289 on YouTube.